I'm Kevin Jacobson of Gold Derby here with Simon Helberg, who has a standout role in the film Annette. So, Simon, I think probably for a lot of people, this is a pretty hard pivot from The Big Bang Theory and some of the other lighter projects you've done. I'm curious if that was kind of like a conscious choice on your part to do something pretty different and just what made this story stand out for you.
It's probably a hard left in anyone's career, I think, doing this film. I mean, it's hard to think of many films like it. So that, on the face of it, is incredibly appealing. And I mean, the genius of Leos and the singularity of him as a filmmaker and Sparks made me certifiably kind of insane in an effort to get this role. I think I broke international laws and am sworn to secrecy on certain events that I had to manage. But I got a passport that is French, and that was absolutely. I mean, that's the craziest thing I guess I've ever done, maybe in my life, but certainly for a role. So that's how badly I wanted the part. I don't know if it makes me desperate or ambitious or somewhere in between, but yeah. So I'm conscious of certainly of going from a television show to working with an auteur. I'm aware of it, but it doesn't dictate the decisions. And obviously this wasn't even handed to me anyway, so I had to chase it down. And it really was the people and the story though that made me almost go to jail.
Well, I think you feel the passion, I think, from your performance watching it. And even though this is a supporting role in the film, I imagine it was quite demanding in general. You know, you're playing the accompanist to Marion Cotillard, who's playing the singer. So you're playing the piano, eventually you're conducting, you're singing. You know, how much training and rehearsal really went into those musical aspects?
A tremendous amount, and it was always it was kind of murky. You know, there wasn't a ton of communication directly, really, ever. Even throughout the movie, it was a sometimes by osmosis, I would say. You would be directed, and sometimes it was very exacting. But leading up to the film, there wasn't really anybody saying, "Oh, you're going to have to conduct the Philharmonic," you know, when you get to Belgium. And I always want to be prepared, sometimes ad nauseum. I know that when you get to the set, the demands might be beyond your wildest imagination. And that is exactly what happened. So I worked with an assistant conductor at the LA Met, at the LA Opera. Mia Im and Tim Davies worked on the film in the music department, and he helped me learn how to conduct. And so I actually was learning the technique of conducting and then, you know, just pouring through videos of Gustavo Dudamel and Herbert von Karajan and everyone in between, Leonard Bernstein, and reading biographies, just trying to absorb as much as I could, so that really it could be ingrained in my DNA. Because when you get, you know, to a set and everyone's speaking French and there's an orchestra staring at you, you have to know how to wield that baton. And even though I bought the baton on Amazon in preparation, and actually I used this thing that I got from Amazon Prime, I used the actual baton because it was that kind of film where it was, the French are very verite. So there's a lot of just flying by the seat of your pants, but then you have to kind of be able to, sing while your head is being shoved underwater, or play the piano while you're operating a puppet, or conduct an orchestra and deliver a soliloquy. And so, yeah, so it was all pretty authentic. I poured through these orchestral scores, and I studied with a singing coach, and, the puppeteers on the set worked with us. And then, Leos was all about just doing it in one shot, as I'm sure you've noticed some of those epic scenes. So there just wasn't really a lot of room for error, and I'd say the impossible was always being asked of us, and that does create a real vulnerability, I think, on the screen that you can sense either consciously or unconsciously, but everyone is kind of walking this tightrope the whole time through that film.
Yeah, you could feel that, I think. And I think there's also just a certain look to your character, you know, with the curly hair and the scarf and the outfits. They're pretty distinct, I would say. And I'm wondering how much, even though that could be something superficial, how much that can aid in your performance.
Well, the hair was, I was non-negotiable on that hair. I couldn't seem to find a conductor without just fascinating hair that was almost a character in and of itself. So yeah, you've got the Dudamel curls and all the, you know, all these guys had, it was always it was part of it. And some conductors are not really as performative, but I feel like, you know, in this film, it felt like, you know, the conducting scene, you're almost inside of the head of this character, and it's almost like I'm speaking without speaking, which is kind of what was being asked, again, in the vein of that sort of impossible demand throughout. And then as things kind of swelled emotionally, or from this kind of pit of despair that this character was in, he would have these big orchestral breaks, and you know, waving around that hair and getting some form of whiplash, I think was my ultimate goal. When you watch these guys, there's you know, some of them are just they're very passionate, and sometimes they're very self-conscious, and it's an interesting role, the role of a conductor, I think, because there's so much power in it, and yet they're also just these kind of divine interpreters. You know, they're not the composers. And they all seem to have a real kind of volatility to them, and really seem to wear their hearts on their sleeves, from what I just, as I pieced it together. And that was what I wanted to also bring, this kind of boyish purity to this guy, and just a real bleeding heart. And there's no easier way to do that than, you know, just whipping your head around and waving those curls. So yeah, so that was something that I wanted to bring, and yeah, and this and the outfits, but it was very collaborative. Leos he's truly, you know, the word artist is overused, I think, but the visual of that movie is astounding, and that's Leos and Caroline, the DP, and, you know, and everyone on down there, from the art department to everybody. But yeah, it was collaborative, and also a very, very particular vision that Leos had, that I feel like I came to just serve at the same time.
Yeah. You've talked a lot about sort of the physical stuff and the visual aspects. You know, you're working with the puppet, you're getting into a fight with Adam Driver. There's a lot going on, you know, but, you know, starting with the puppet, you have, I think, one of the more emotional scenes in the whole film for me, when you're at the piano with Annette and you're singing "We Love Each Other So Much." And it looks like a simple scene, but there's so much there, with you having to, you know, remember the piano and singing, I assume, live on set, and have this puppet in your lap and delivering this emotional performance that is sincere, I think, and actually quite moving. And it's really this ode to his love of Marion Cotillard's character. How did you sort of unlock the kind of emotional core of this character on top of all the physical aspects?
Well, at the risk of spoiling this for anybody that hasn't seen it, you know,
it's been out for a while.
yeah, there's no excuses anymore. For me, it was all about protecting this little girl, and I mean, it begins, I think, there is a pursuit, a pursuit of love in this film, I think, from all these characters, and of being loved, and I think trying to determine whether you're worthy of being loved. I think there's this kind of insecurity with all of these characters, but for my character, it certainly starts romantically with Anne, but and the jilted aspect of that broken broken love. But then, you know, it becomes very clear that this little girl is my daughter, and she's in peril, and she's also another avenue to connect to Anne too, I think, in a way as well. So you know, I felt like the tenderness of and the secrecy that really encapsulated that dynamic. It was something that I found, I can't say it was easy, but it was clear in terms of how I needed to tap into that. And then as far as it being a puppet, that kind of falls by the wayside, because, and in some ways it lends itself to that quality as well, because there is this fragility, there is this unknown. This is a girl that my character doesn't know, but has a profound connection to, and I don't know the art of puppeteering, and there's something dangerous about it. And it was being asked of us right there on the set, you know, by these two brilliant artists, Romuel and okay, I'll remember her name in a sec. But this man and this woman who worked their whole life to perfect this craft, and they're handing over this puppet to these actors that have no skill in this arena, and they're asking us to do it, and they're speaking French. So there was like an alien quality to it, and a fear, I would say, and again, sort of that tightrope vulnerability. So I think that actually added a layer to the scene, and then you just play it as honestly as you can, and all of that, you know, playing the piano and kind of navigating around this puppet and the puppeteer underneath, and all of that kind of choreography can really pull you out of your head, which is a real gift as an actor. You know, and those demands and singing and all of it, it was always you know, we were always being asked at least 2 or 3 things. You know, it was like, you're not just singing, but you're singing and swimming, you know, and you're not operating a puppet, but you're operating a puppet and playing the piano and singing, or whatever it may be. So in some ways it's liberating. And yeah, and so I found an actual authentic, I'd say genuine tenderness there between myself and that puppet, and it just, the face of her aesthetically, I found to be really moving, and I was really able to connect, you know, and that's part of the genius of Leos as well, is, you know, they start this film in that kind of Brechtian prologue. You're going to watch a movie, there's going to be murders, there's going to be artifice, and I'm going to make you care about it. You know, and then you do. There's no pretense. It's not saying, oh, well, this is real at any point. It's an opera, and that's a puppet, and do you care about it? Hopefully. I think that's part of the great the essence of storytelling. So
yeah, that's the thing, like with a movie like this, it's so out there and full of all these wildly original ideas, and the audience, I think, can react in a number of different ways. And you knew the script, you were there in production, but when it came to the final product and seeing all those different elements put together, I mean, how did you actually react when you watched all of that for the first time?
Well, oh, her name is Estelle. I'm going to give her the proper, because she's fantastic. Those puppeteers so integral to this. Well, you know, it's rare. I feel like usually when you are a part of, you know, any film or television show, there's quite a leap from the script to the screen. I'd say the leap from the script, which was really just a libretto, was just the lyrics, and it was sort of like, you know, as bare bones of stage direction as you could possibly have, or character description. It was which was, I love. It's very exciting. You get to bring all your ideas to it, but in terms of like looking at it without hearing the music, there were pictures that Leos had put in there as references, but but when you read it, you would have no idea what this thing was going to be unless you were familiar with the Sparks and familiar with Leos, in which case you would then go, well, I still have no idea what this is going to be, because everything they do is completely different and reinvents the medium in some way. But at least I know that, it's going to be quite an event. But once we started shooting, honestly, everything that we shot, I knew exactly what movie we were making as soon as I showed up to the set, and everything that we did there was on the screen. I would say, at least like 95% of it, and a lot of that's because he did it in one shot. So, even the first song, the accompanist song that I have, is all one shot, and the conducting scene where it goes around me is just beautiful and stunning and very memorable, I think. But the I'm an accompanist scene in the beginning, you almost don't even notice that it's one shot, and it's going from the audience to the orchestra through a curtain, and the same thing actually in the scene where I'm drown, this huge death scene, singing and fighting and drowning. Again, he did it in one. I think he had two cameras rolling, so there may be like a cut or two, but I think you feel that as an audience too. Again, sometimes unconsciously, but it's like you really feel when you're watching somebody go from like falling into a table all the way to being shoved underwater in a pool. I mean, you if you see it happening and there's no cuts, you register something very dangerous. And it also makes editing probably more limited, and therefore, the film that I remember making on the set didn't have a lot of a tremendous amount of edits, so it's it's pretty remarkable what Leos and Sparks managed to do here.
It truly is. It's very visceral. And just while I have you here, we only have a few minutes left, but I have to ask about Big Bang, and specifically just the routine of having that job for 12 years, working with the same group of people for all that time. It ended in 2019, so it's been 2 years now. I'm just curious, just to sort of bring it all full circle, how much of an adjustment period there was after that final episode in terms of not having that in your life anymore and wondering, like, what do I do next?
Oh, it's hard to all routine has, in case you haven't noticed, it's just been completely eviscerated.
Yeah.
But it's like it's kind of, I don't know if it's good or bad, but to kind of go from 12 years of making a show to flying to Europe and making this wild film to a pandemic and teetering on the edge of collapse at all moments. It is a very unnerving and confusing thing, but at the same time, it's certainly ripping the Band-Aid off, I guess, because nothing is normal anymore, and I don't. All my energy is kind of just swirling around. So it's good. It's an interesting moment, I think, to be able to reflect and to be incredibly discerning about the things that I do in terms, professionally. But it's such a gift to have something like Annette. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's it will be hard to continue to meet that kind of standard, but I welcome it, and I really love, as you said, I love hard pivots. I don't really, and not in a strategic way, but I like it because I became an actor to play as many characters as I could. I'm fascinated by people and humanity, and I want to try to swim in that as much as I can. And then you have the fortunate opportunity to be on a show for 12 years and play the same character and do that. And obviously it was a wonderful thing, but kind of strange, and I get sort of unprecedented. So, but it also was a great challenge too, to try to make that new and exciting. But at the same time, it's still the same character, it's still the same kinds of stories and same world. And so now I get to make all those hard left turns and look for things that I haven't done before. So, just trying to kind of reacclimate as the world hopefully starts to spin on its axis again. And, very just thrilled to get to be a part of a movie like Annette, and, trying to get the word out. I think it's a remarkable thing. So I hope people check it out,
Yeah. And we're all just curious to see what's next, like a Western, like who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. I just trying to scare myself, which is pretty easy, but 'cause I'm kind of always in a state of panic. But that was a great lesson from the net, which is all these things that just seem absolutely terrifying and impossible. And Leos would often say, he would ask me to, at one point he asked me to lift my hand off the piano, and then he asked me to lift the other hand off the piano, and I said, so you want me to play the piano then with no hands? And he said, well, you do not want to disappoint your French director. And so that's my new motto, is I don't want to disappoint my French director. So I will continue to look for the impossible, and I'll continue to try to scare the shit out of myself, and see where I land.
Yeah. Well, for those of you watching, like and subscribe for more interviews, and head to goldderby.com to make your Oscar predictions. Simon, really great talking to you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, it was so nice talking to you, Kevin. Thank you.